You know that feeling when you walk away from a conversation and think, man, we barely scratched the surface? Or when you're trying to solve a problem and you just keep hitting a wall? Well, the reason for that, surprisingly, often comes down to one single thing: the quality of the questions you're asking. It's such a simple idea, but it's incredibly powerful. See, better questions don't just get you better answers, they literally build you a better mind. I want you to think about it like this. A really good question is like a key. It's not just asking for a piece of information, it's designed to actually unlock someone's mind, to turn them from just a passive listener into an active thinker. But the wrong kind of question? Well, that's a deadbolt. It just shuts the whole conversation down. And here's what that looks like in action. A dead-end question like, tell me about digestion, is so big and vague that most people's brains just freeze. Where do you even start? But a key question gives you a starting point. By asking about a sandwich, you create a picture in their head, a clear path for their brain to follow. One question kills thinking, the other one guides it. So let's start with the problem, what I like to call the thinking killer. These are the kinds of questions that just stop a conversation dead in its tracks. And let's be honest, we've all asked them and we've all been completely stumped by them too. We call this a dead-end question. It's either so confusing or it's so simple that it doesn't require any real thinking at all. It just gets you a yes, a no, or that confused stare, right? And the conversation just hits a brick wall. You're not actually asking someone to understand something, you're pretty much just asking them to guess. So why do we care so much about this? I mean, it's not just about having better chats with people. Getting this skill right has some really powerful benefits for our brains, especially for how we learn and remember things. And the research on this is absolutely fascinating. Cognitive psychology shows us something pretty incredible about how our brains are wired. We only remember about 50% of what we just hear. But look at that jump. When a good question actually prompts us to organize our thoughts and say something out loud, our ability to remember it just skyrockets. And that brings us to this big number, 70%. That's how much more information we remember when we're asked to put it into our own words. A good question isn't just a pop quiz, it's a full-on mental workout. It forces your brain to process, to organize, and then to express an idea. This simple shift from passive listener to active speaker can totally change the game, whether you're a student, a boss, or just trying to think through a problem on your own. All right, so how do we actually do this? How do we start asking these key questions? Well, the great news is that this is absolutely a skill you can learn. So let's break it down into a really simple 3-part toolkit that you can start using like today. Okay, tool number 1 is the foundation of everything, the question itself. Crafting a really powerful question right from the start sets the entire conversation up for success. It's all about being intentional. I want you to think of it like climbing a ladder of thinking. The best questions help move people up the rungs. Now, it's totally fine to start at the bottom with simple recall, the what is questions. But the real magic happens as you climb higher, asking questions that make people apply knowledge, analyze it, and even create something new. You're not just testing their memory anymore, you're building a mental muscle. It's also about knowing what kind of thinking you want to spark. Convergent questions are perfect for checking facts. They narrow everything down to one right answer. But divergent questions, they do the exact opposite. They blow the doors wide open and spark creativity by allowing for tons of possible answers. A great conversation actually uses both. First, you check for understanding, and then you open the door to imagination. Now, our second tool is probably the simplest and honestly the most overlooked one of all. It's not about what you say, but what you do right after you ask a question, and what you do is nothing. You just pause. The magic number here is 3. Research shows that just waiting for 3 to 5 seconds after you ask a question completely transforms the answers you get. Now, I'm telling you, this is going to feel like an eternity, because most of us only wait about 1 second before we get all nervous and jump in. But that silence, that's where the thinking is actually happening. This quote just nails the psychology of the pause, doesn't it? When you rush someone, the silent message you're sending is, hurry up and guess. But when you wait, you're sending a message of confidence. You're saying, hey, I believe you can come up with a thoughtful answer, and I'm totally willing to wait for it. You're giving their brain the time it needs to actually do the work. Our final tool is all about what happens after you get an answer. A great question is only the start of it. The real magic, the deepest thinking, so often happens in the follow-up. It's every bit as important as that first question you asked. These are what we call probing questions. Instead of just stopping at a surface-level answer, you gently invite the person to go deeper. Simple phrases like, "Can you tell me more about that?" or "Why do you think that is?" are really powerful invitations to expand, clarify, and justify their thinking. This is how you turn a simple Q&A into a really rich discussion. And while you're probing, it is so important to reinforce the effort of thinking, not just whether the answer is right. Generic praise like "good answer" or "nice" just kind of falls flat. But specific praise that points out the process, like "I really like how you explained that step by step," shows that you value their thought process itself. And that's what builds the confidence that makes people want to think deeply the next time.
Okay, so let's put all three of these tools together. We're going to look at a simple before and after to see just how huge of a difference these small shifts can make in a real conversation.
So here's the before scenario, and I think we've all been here. Someone asks a vague, dead-end question. They wait for maybe one awkward second, and then, just to fill the horrible silence, they give the answer themselves. And what's the result? Total passivity. Nobody's thinking, they're all just waiting to be spoon-fed the information. But now, look at the after. The difference is just night and day. We start with a specific, concrete question. That's tool number 1. Then we have that crucial pause to let people think. That's tool number 2. And finally, a follow-up that encourages people to work together and have a deeper discussion. Tool number 3. Suddenly, it's an active, engaging exchange, all because of a few simple, intentional shifts.
The big takeaway here is that this isn't just some abstract theory. This is a practical toolkit you can start using today, in your next meeting, your next class, or even just at the dinner table. It's about being more intentional so you can unlock better thinking in other people and, of course, in yourself. So I'll leave you with this. What's the one conversation you're going to change this week with a better question?